Hey, sixth graders. Welcome to week 7. Can you believe this is the 7th week of online learning? We're going to continue with talking about positive and negative numbers. So we're on lesson 7, comparing numbers, in distance from 0. Remember we talked about absolute value being the distance from 0, and then opposites being on opposite sides of 0, okay? So the first question is asking me if A is a rational number. Now I've defined rational number down here, so you'll be able to copy it down or just make a copy of the notes. But a rational number means any number that can be written as a fraction. That would include positive numbers, negative numbers. Any repeating decimal can be written as a fraction. What can't be written as a fraction, or that's irrational, would be a number like pi that keeps going on forever, okay? So it says, A is a rational number, choose a value for A. So let's choose 3, okay? I'm just gonna make this 1, 2, 3. Then it says, and plot it on the number line, which we did. Based on where you plotted A, plot negative A. So if I said this was A, that means a negative A would have to be negative 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, right? Okay, both are 3 places from 0. One's negative, one's positive, okay? So we had 3 and negative 3 for our values. They are opposites, okay? The next question though says, Noah says if A is a rational number, negative A will always be a negative number. Do we agree with Noah? I don't agree with Noah, and I'm going to show you why. Let's say that I said A was this number. That means the opposite of A would be, if this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places from 0, it means the opposite of A would be here. Okay? So this means that A was actually negative 5. Okay? This would be negative 5. Because I'm saying negative A. Okay? So really this is positive 5 and that's negative 5. But the way I did it, I said A was negative 5. So does that mean that it's always going to be a negative number? No. No, if I start with a negative number, okay, the opposite of that negative is going to be positive. Okay, it's not telling me that my A had to be positive here and negative here. It's just saying you're naming this point A. You don't know what it is. It's an unknown number. And this would be its opposite, okay? Because that's a little confusing, okay? But it is not always going to be the case. And I kind of showed that up here. All right, here's some definitions that you absolutely have to know, okay? To understand positive and negatives. Any rational number, and I just wrote them down ahead of time so that we could go a little quicker, is any number that can be written as a fraction, positive or negative, okay? So some examples might be negative 5/3. That's a rational number. Negative 18, positive 18. 0 can be written as a fraction. 0 over 12 is 0. Okay, so it's any number that can be written as a fraction. Opposites are the same distance from 0 on opposite sides of 0. Okay, so if I'm on a number line, right, we said 3 and, oops, let's go back up here. 3 and negative 3 were opposites. Okay, it's going to have the opposite sign. A lot of people get these two confused. Absolute value literally means your distance from 0. This one is 2 places from 0. This one is 2 places from 0. I would show you with the little kitten stuffed animal that I had last time to show you that you can't go a negative distance, but my dog ate it. So he's making I'm trying to teach him not to, just a side note, when I get the kitten in 2 weeks, that to be good to it, but he had this stuffed animal, and I don't know if you can see on there, but he's pretty much chewed its eye off and its ear off, so our training's not going the best. Working on it. All right? So you can't go a negative distance. Think about it. I can go backwards. I can reverse in my car, but I'm still going a distance, okay? All right. On this side, this one is saying, okay, it's got a lot of, let me just straighten that out. It's got a lot of information in it, so I'm going to read through it. It says a submarine is at an elevation of negative 100 feet, which is 100 feet below sea level. So I just kind of drew a little picture, okay? Here's sea level. Here's where my submarine is. Let's compare the elevations of these 4 people to that submarine. It says Claire's elevation is greater than the elevation of the submarine. That means it can't be under negative 100. It's got to be above it. And she's farther from sea level than the submarine. Okay, so if the submarine is 100 feet from sea level, that means Claire has to be, if this is 100 feet, I'm trying to make it about the same. Okay, Claire has to be somewhere above that. So Claire has to be up here. Above, from here up. So she could be anywhere there. I don't know where, but I know that she has to be above. If these are both 100 feet, then she has to be above that. Okay? The second one saying Andre's elevation is less than the elevation of the submarine. Andre is farther away from sea level as the submarine. So it's saying his elevation is less than negative 100. That means it's down more. So Andre would have to be down here. Okay? It's saying he's farther away from sea level, which is true. Any place past 100 feet, he's going to be farther away than the submarine was. Okay? All right, now we're into Hans. Hans, what color have I not used yet? Orange. So it says Hans' elevation is greater than the elevation of the submarine, and he's closer to sea level than the submarine. Okay? So it's saying he's greater than the submarine, and he's closer to sea level. So Hans could be anywhere in here. Okay? Hans could be here, or Hans could be here. Either way, he's greater than 100 feet below sea level, and he's closer to 0 than the submarine. So he could be anywhere here or here. Okay? Lynn, who is now going to be in this turquoise color, elevation is the same distance away from sea level as the submarines. Okay? That means Lynn could be here. Lynn doesn't want to work. We're going to get a different Lynn. Lynn is now going to be brown. So Lynn could be here, exact same as the submarine because it's just saying it's the same distance. Or Lynn could be up here, okay? Both times she's 100 feet from 0. All right, so in the table, so that's just kind of showing you. I just went through it like person by person and kind of drew in where they would land. So what they want us to do in the table is get an example. And they gave us Claire. They said her possible elevation, remember we said she had to be greater than 100 feet. They said 150 feet. That makes sense. Compare it to the submarine. 150 is greater than negative 100. And the distance from sea level would be the absolute value of 150. That's what distance means. Or 150 feet. Okay? Now Andre, we can come up with our own thing. What color was Andre? Andre's green. All right, so Andre we know is less than the submarine. So let's say he's at negative 200 feet. So if I have to write an inequality, I would say Andre is less than the submarine. Okay, because he's farther down. The distance from 0 would be the absolute value of negative 200. Literally read that how far from 0 is negative 200, which is 200 feet, because distance is always positive. All right, Han, on the other hand, my orange band, it's saying, well, he could be anywhere here, okay? So let's say Han is at, we're going to put Han at 20 feet. Okay, I could pick 20, I could pick negative 20, anywhere in between, above negative 100, but less than 100. He had to fall in that range. So I would say 20 feet is greater than negative 100, which is true. The absolute value of 20, or the distance from 0 of 20, is 20 feet. So he is 20 feet from 0. Lynn, we said her possible elevation could be, she could be exactly the same as the submarine, or she could be 100 feet. Let's put her at 100 feet. She's the opposite of the submarine. I would say 100 is greater than negative 100. The absolute value of 100 is 100, right? The distance from 0 of 100. Okay, the last question on this part says, Priya says her elevation is less than the submarine's and she's closer to sea level. Is that possible? So Priya is saying that, Priya is going to be a highlighter. Priya is saying her elevation is less than the submarine. So Priya and Andre are kind of the same, okay? But her absolute value or her distance from zero is closer. Is that possible? No, it's not possible. Okay? The closest she could be would be 100.00001, right? And that's still going to be farther down, okay? She is farther from sea level. She has to be farther from sea level. Okay? Because she is less than negative 100 feet, okay? That means she was down there, and that is farther from zero, okay? So it's kind of talking a little bit about absolute value, a little bit about opposites when we talked about Lynn, and a little bit about how far from zero with absolute value again, okay? All right, that's pretty easy. All right, this part, we're not doing the 7-3. I know I included it in your notes because I can't take pages out, but we're not going to do that. That's an activity, and we're just going to do a little bit of this, okay? It's just saying that if you had some numbers and I want to make an inequality, okay? So if I want something that's equal to, what I'm going to look at probably is either a fraction or I'm going to look at, like, let's say 8 and the absolute value of 8. This is just 8. This is the distance from 0 of negative 8, which is 8. So if I wanted to write an inequality, I would say 8 is equal to the absolute value of negative 8. They are both 8 places from 0. Okay? I just did the absolute value of that. Something is the absolute value of something. Okay, well, let's do it this way. I've got, let me find another absolute value. I have got this, which is negative 2.5. Okay, which is 2.5. So I could say 2.5 is the absolute value of negative 5/2, okay? I could have used 8 and negative 8 as well. Greater than, I just want one number that's, so if I want to be really easy, I could pick a positive and a negative, right? So let's say I use positive 1 is greater than negative 0.7. Okay? And if I want one that's less than, I can do the same thing. I could do positive and negative, or I could do 2 negatives, or I could do 2 positives, or I could use 0. Let's use 0. I could say 0 is less than 1. Okay, so it's just coming up with 2 numbers that are opposite, or not opposites, that fit the equal to absolute value of. Okay, so that was a kind of a quick little activity on that. All right, so that was pretty much the lesson part. This part I want to go over with you. It's just saying, are you ready for more? And it's just using variables instead of numbers. So what I did is I put in numbers to make them true or false, just to kind of show you. So this said, for each question, choose a value for each variable to make the whole statement true. When the word and is used in math, both parts have to be true for the whole thing to be true, okay? So it's asking us, can we do it if you have a negative and a positive number? And is it possible when they're both negative? Okay, so I showed you an example that it's going to work and where it's not going to work. So on this one, yes, they could positive and negative. If x is negative, okay, and y is positive, these both would be true, okay? So I don't think there's anything I could also make this false. If I had negative 4 is less than y, okay, I could also make this false, okay? So if I had negative 4, I just thought about that, is less than, let's say 2. the absolute value of -4, would that be less than 2? No, so this one would be false. So I can do it with one negative and one positive. I don't think I can do it with both negatives. Okay, if I had -2 and -1, this second number has to be bigger. Okay, the absolute value has to be bigger. All right, so same thing here. It says A is less than B. So I kind of came up with two numbers. I used a negative and a positive, one negative, one positive, because that's the only way I could do that. If I have one negative, one positive, A has to be the negative, right? So then if I did the absolute value of that, I can make it true, but I could also make it false, okay? So if I, let's say, made this negative, you know, it's always going to be true. Sorry, I'm thinking of that one. So if I did this with two negatives, -4 is less than -3. The absolute value of -4 is never going to be greater than or less than the absolute value of -3. So that one would be false. Okay, so that one, it's never going to work. Never going to work. And I did the same thing on here. I just picked two numbers to see if I can make it true. And would it always be true? So this one, I can make it true on both of them. And this one, I just, again, picked two numbers, kind of substituted in. I can make it true here. It's not going to work on this one. So it's just using a little bit of variables and kind of a little bit of imagination in variables and substituting in numbers to see what works and what doesn't work. Okay? All right, and then again, this is your lesson summary. That should help with everything we've done so far. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.